Yeah.
Okay, 6:30. I call this meeting of the Joshua City Council to order. We do have a quorum present. At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Fleming to lead us in the pledge to the flags. And if you'll remain standing afterwards, I'm going to do the invitation.
Sit me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for this day that you've given us. Lord, we thank you for all the blessings you've bestowed upon us. Father, we thank you for the blessings you've bestowed upon our city. Father, we thank you for the wonderful people that live here. We thank you for providing for them and Lord, just allowing us to be part of their lives. Lord, we thank you that you'll give us wisdom to make proper decisions tonight. Father, we thank you that everyone here will speak and work in a spirit of unity. Father, I just thank you and praise you in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
All right, so we're going to open the work session. First thing is to review a question related to the budget. Mr. Peacock.
Well, the report is before you. We are still doing end of year invoices, trying to get everything cleared up, posted for the end of September. So some of these numbers are a bit deceiving, I guess, not deceiving, confusing, I guess, because until we get all that stuff cleaned up and get all the totals, the revenue lines, there's some pretty big numbers in those, totaling those out for year end, and we did very well in our estimations for the year and exceeded all of the projections that we made. And then so some of the monthly stuff, so a little bit skewed because so much has been turned in, so many people trying to get invoices in for stuff coming through. But I went through this with Joanna this morning and got a few things squared away for me, and I'll be happy to take any questions that you have. Bottom line is we're in good shape. No end of year disasters. Yeah.
Looking through here, it looked like all our expense lines were either right at or below the projections. That is amazing. The way things have been going this past year. I want to commend you and your department heads for keeping a close eye on these dollars.
They did very well. I asked them to stop spending money and they slowed way down. So I think we're going to come in fine. There's going to be a few individual line items that are a bit over, mostly for some unforeseen things, truck repairs. Some of the building R&M lines are going to be over because we put new roofs on everything, but that money came in as revenue on the revenue side from the insurance. So once we get all those journal entries done and get everything balanced out, I think we'll be returning some money to the general fund this year.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll on the item 2, update on past due solid waste services council law, changing and building procedures.
So I've asked Angela to start focusing on some of the collections and turning up the heat on some past due stuff that quite frankly is well overdue. She's had some success. We collected over $8,000. The first month or about 6 weeks when she started this. And those were accounts that were, I believe, 90 days past due or greater. We're gonna step up now. But actually that we're gonna go to the 128 accounts that are past due the 90 days. The ones we did before were still some holdovers from when we were billing quarterly. And she collected 8,000 of that. Now, we've got $12,000 in 90 days past due, and she's already started working on those. But what we're doing is we're feeding this information to Waste Connections, and they're putting it into their database for their trucks. So as their trucks approach a driveway, their screen will tell them if that's an active account or a closed account. And after they get missed a couple of times, they start calling. And so then Angela breaks the news to them, and most of them have come in and paid. The reason we're making such a push now is if and when we transfer the billing, it will not include past due collections. So we're going to try to collect as much of that as we can and clear as much of that off the books as we can. And she's doing very well. She's focused on it. She's making phone calls daily to people. But the thing that's really helped is stopping the service.
I've spoken with Waste Connections. They're looking at a January date to start making the billing. So we were really pushing to get as many of these accounts cleaned up because we won't transfer over any past due accounts. And then so they'll have to reestablish accounts when they go over there, but they will charge the same fees that we have set in our ordinance. So they'll stick to the same fee schedule and all that too. So
How are we going to notify people of the changeover?
I'm going to get with Alice and get a letter out through the newsletter and then through the billing too. And then I'm going to start working on some publications for Facebook and just put it wherever we can put it to let people know.
If you can get with Waste Connections and somehow have them
Yeah.
give us a sample of what their bill will look like.
Yeah.
That way, when people get it in the mail, they'll understand that, yes, this truly is a bill and so on.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that as I was sitting down to pay my bills and went, okay,
Yeah, I want to kind of
this is
do,
gonna happen and
Yeah.
how am I going to know?
I want to do gradual communication to first start with, hey, coming in January, your billing's going to be changing. And then as we get closer to the date, I want to make sure we're pushing out links and how to do payments, and because they do have an app as well. And I want to give them information about the app. So it'll probably be information overload, but I'd rather give them too much than not enough.
Will be able to be set up on auto pay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Good.
I've heard the app is amazing because it
It's
reminds
great
you to set your trash
situations.
out too.
It's never worked. No.
Yeah, I think it's new. Yeah. Yeah. You just don't really think about it. It's just such a small little bill.
If you're on the council and your service is disconnected, you have to pay double.
And take us all out to dinner.
Yes.
I'll try to- I get off for that. Right. Anybody have any more questions about the trash billing? Okay, we'll move on to item number 3 then. And this is going to be a discussion on the request to place a digital billboard sign on city-owned property located in 325 North Broadway Street. Mr. Peacock.
This is something that came to us a few months ago from Billy Tolson. And we had talked about seeing if there would be a home for this sign in Joshua Station, so that to kind of increase our abilities to advertise and some things there, but determined probably not a good fit there. But the property location that we purchased where the plans are to put the new municipal complex, there's about 200 feet, I think 160 feet or so of roadway access to 174 that we're not going to be able to use as access to it. So we've come up with option B that y'all are going to hear about later. But this would be a pretty good place for this sign to go. And so Billy is here tonight. He can answer questions about what it is. It would be a partnership with us, and we would have some accessibility to it to to, for city, I guess those things could be worked out, but I think it could be a deal beneficial to both of us.
And if I could hand that off and speak a little bit about it. I think I see some familiar faces here. If most of you don't know, my family's been involved with Joshua Station since, let's see, over 15 years now. Kind of a labor of love for my father, Ray Tolson. When he passed away in 2009, my mother, Deborah Tolson, and I took over. And I feel like we've been good custodians of that land ever since. And the last couple of years, obviously, it's been really exciting to see the developments. Obviously, the upcoming museum, pretty excited about that. And it's going to leave us 3.5 acres of land left. And we're going to hold out for the best possible use. I'd love to sit down restaurant, be quite honest with you. But that's some something in the future. What I want to talk about today is, we've been a partner with Joshua for over 15 years now. And what I'm proposing with this digital sign is a partner continuation and communication, really. Communication from the city to its citizens by virtue of public service announcements, inclement weather announcements in real time, to fun stuff like football scores and city council proclamations, events at the YMCA, holiday, stuff that you guys post in real time. The city will have access to that sign. It's a real easy program. You'll be able to just upload stuff without having to deal with anyone in particular. It's just a software program. Really it's an updated state-of-the-art way of communicating with the citizens, amongst the citizens, and more importantly, for the local businesses to communicate to the citizens. What a lot of people don't realize is that billboards, outdoor advertising is really the best and cheapest way for a local advertiser to get their message across. No one's really able to spend money on airwaves or radio ads. It's just too expensive. And a board hasn't been built in Joshua, to my understanding, since or before 1998. That's 7 billboards in the city right now. 5 of them are owned by Lamar Outdoor. Effectively, they have a monopoly over the outdoor advertising. And if you go on Google Maps, I don't know if you guys, if you ever do that, but you can check to see ground level. You can go back 12 years now and see photographs are taken. Some of these billboard advertisements haven't changed in 10 years. The advertising, they changed copy, obviously, but it's been about 8 or 9 years for some of these home sites, etc. So there hasn't been a lot of real estate available for other small businesses to advertise. So what I'm proposing is essentially opening up 14 or more spots because of the nature of the digital board slip advertising, and adding for a little more competitive nature. My cost will be lower. The cost will be lower for the advertisers because it'll be lower than Lamar's rate, just by the nature of the digital ads. They're just going to be probably 25 to 40% lower than the vinyl prints. And of course, donating some space to the city will allow for you guys to, you can advertise your own things, but I really think the civic announcements will be a big boon. Best of my knowledge, the only digital sign you really have that's doing that is the small one in Joshua Station. It's YMCA, and I don't really think that's a good visibility. And maybe the Facebook page you guys have, last time I checked, there's 6,000 people that are follow that. But you have 35,000 eyeballs going down the street every day. That's going to be a great, nice message to send across. And I know if you've probably looked at the materials, you've seen some schematics, but there's one element that wasn't in there that I want to share with you, is that this isn't going to be a traditional monopole billboard. We're going to put a masonry wall on here. And hopefully, we can line that up with whatever City Hall's masonry will look like. So it'll really kind of fit in with that area once you do build City Hall. And as Mike mentioned, it's kind of a piece of land that, you get TxDOT's not going to give you access there. So you just got a strip of land there that's not going to be used much for anything. A lot of times, it's fun to put like a City of Joshua monument sign underneath it, but usually that's maybe on the north side or south side of town. It's kind of smack dab in the middle, but that's an option as well. It's really, I look at this as kind of an economic development situation, which you guys are able to do under Chapter 380 of the Texas Local Code. is a way to benefit the city. It's also a way, more importantly, to get local businesses able to advertise and et cetera. So, if you guys have any questions, there's obviously this is kind of first step in the process. I want to kind of educate everyone on how this works. And then we can kind of fine tune the finer points. Obviously, there will be an economic development agreement, which I'm sure Terry will kind of advise on to kind of massage, get everything so both parties are kind of satisfied. So
Who would regulate the content?
that would be, well, because of our deal, we could have some restrictions on what kind of content would be on the board. It's my company, okay, along with my mother, Debbie Tolson. We've had an outdoor advertising company since 1984. So a lot of times with our landlord, we do have some restrictions, on some of the commercial speech that they're okay. It's, for example, not a lot of political ads. I try to avoid political ads. Obviously anything that's indecent. You guys don't have those sort of places around here. So, up in Dallas, there's certain parts where you've got some of those clubs and stuff like that. But ultimately, I've had a vested interest in the city. I've always had it. I'll own this board forever. I'm not going to turn around and sell it to another company. But we can build in the economic development agreement some restrictions that we might want to put in there. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to greenlight any sort of advertisement that's going to cause any sort of ruckus. And quite frankly, I haven't really had much come up. I turned down a lot of political stuff just because, I don't want to have to do both sides. So
We just want to make sure it's not anything inappropriate.
Yeah,
And it fits
yeah,
in with
no,
our community standards.
yeah, and like I said, that's something we can codify in an agreement. And you can always, if we're 10 years down the line and something pops up, you can always point to that agreement and say, hey, we have this restricted. So, and since it's digital, back in the day it was a vinyl ad, it'd take 3 or 4 days to come down. Now it's digital, with the push of a button, it's gone.
I don't know if any of y'all have noticed, but if you've driven down 171 lately, Godly is taking advantage of something like this with their high school scoreboard. And that thing will turn and face 171 or kind of at an angle, and they advertise on that, and then they turn it back for football games. And
That's pretty neat.
I don't know how big it is, but it's a big
It's nice.
It is a big one.
Yeah, you see a lot of cities these days. South Burleson, if you look across from Texas Health, there's a dual-sided digital right there by Arrington. I understand Cleburne is making some moves. I even heard Keene. So, a lot of cities are using these this kind of hyper growth mode, and they're adding these in there. And I think Joshua was kind of underserved in that regard.
Do we know if anybody has reached out to the chamber and they talked to them? There's something, this is something that they're interested in. I personally think that the awards are next door. I don't want to see them. But I'm looking at this and it says that the city would have access to, the city could post on one side of the digital billboard.
Right. So just let me explain that. So the static images will flip every 8 seconds. We don't want a full motion billboard, we're not Las Vegas. And also a lot of TxDOT regulations don't allow for it. So every 8 seconds, a new advertisement will flip. City of Joshua will own one of those flips essentially, and will be plugged in at all times to put whatever ads are they want at any given time.
So it's
So
not,
effectively you'll own a piece of that real estate in terms of that flip.
Just on one side.
but not,
That's the proposal.
not
right
all
now.
the time,
This is a
just,
single-sided. And no, we're gonna try, we're gonna do a dual sided. The right hand reader, which is coming in from the south, that's off, you have a better read. That's good facing. The cross read, there's gonna be some tree issues. I don't know if that's gonna be such a favorable side. I'd like to get a permit for dual sided because the engineering will be built to withstand it. But if for some reason it doesn't make sense, that cross read is obscured, we'll probably just leave that as a static. Does that make sense?
So how many ads would you have at one time?
You
So I know it's gonna
You
flip
can,
through.
each side will have 8 advertisements that flip every 10 seconds. Sometimes advertisers, sometimes 6 ads. I mean, if you're 100% occupied, 8 ads and they flip every 10 seconds. But, you know, sometimes it'll be 4 ads on there, and we'll give extra time, you know, it'll fill out about a 90-second, or sorry, about a 72-second space. So if there's 4 ads on there, those ads will stay up for 15 seconds each, for example.
So to answer your question, I did talk to the chamber president, kind of let her know the proposal of this coming, the potential that's coming up. And because we do so much with them and we partner with them, they were excited because it would give us the opportunity to promote more events and things that are going on in the city.
I think it's a great idea. Asking for this, or things I got on the council to have some kind of a marquee area that we can advertise the city functions and things like that on. My question is, we currently have ordinances that limit the height, the size, and geometry of the sign. So that's something we need to really look
I think Aaron has already gone through this stuff and it's cleared it.
Yeah, and
That's
we
my
did,
understanding.
and that's another reason why we moved it, because Joshua Station does not allow for the height for this, and we looked into this existing site now, and it does accommodate. We have looked for.
at. It won't do us any good if it's just gonna be a restricted size sign and it's not really gonna be big enough to be impactful. It's another.
I asked Aaron tonight, he had something he needed to do this evening, and so I told him he didn't have to be here, but he said he had no objections to this, that he's looked at it. The only thing that I want to do is I want to see the foundation plans, because Atlas is going to want to know that transmission line runs through here. So this property's unbuildable right there for the most part, because more than half of it's in that gas easement, and it's a big gas line. I spoke to Steve Klein. They just want to see what's going to go in, how it's going to set, and make sure that it's far enough away from their gas line. But I don't think that's going to be an issue. He didn't either.
Yeah, because you're essentially laying down a 36-inch pole, so you're not taking up too much space. And then the masonry wall will go around it. So it's, in terms of underground utilities that you're dealing with, we'll be able to avoid those.
Yeah, he didn't think there's going to be an issue because there's enough space. They just want to know for their own knowledge.
So I just want to clarify, so make sure I'm thinking about this the right way. As you're heading southbound on 174, that's the side that's going to be the best exposure.
Yes.
Okay, as you're heading northbound, that would be the static side to start with, and then possibly go to digital side at a later date.
Correct.
Okay.
Mainly because the cross reader is further away.
Yeah.
You're looking left. Okay. It's great that there's a stoplight right there, because people, as traffic backs up, as we know now.
Yeah.
People are sitting there and they'll see that right-hand reader is very close. Plus the trees on the southern end are like 30 feet tall, and that could obscure visibility. And I hate to put up an expensive TV screen.
Yeah.
For nothing.
I don't know a lot of that brush there will come out at some point. And I don't know how big those big tall trees are or what kind they are, but we're not going to cut down any oaks but if it's a cottonwood, it might find its way to landfill somewhere.
Or hackberry.
So this 308 agreement basically is just an agreement with him to use our land. And for the use of the land, we get one quote unquote page. That's how they do chat switches. It's just a different page. We can get one dedicated to us, so we can put anything on the city so desires to put it.
Correct.
And is that something that can be changed? Like, does it have to be the same thing for a certain length of time before we change it, or?
No, it's as easy as it's as simple as just changing the artwork. It'll just feed into the system, and once we kind of, whoever's going to be in charge of that, I can have one of my IT people come over and kind of show them how easy it is. You're really just dropping a picture in there and it just push and go.
So that's just for our portion.
Correct.
Who's going to maintain the other?
I will.
But he's going to give us access, so we don't have to go through him all the time. Who changed this? Who changed this?
And yeah, because if you get,
Real ones are going to be changing it most probably.
Yeah, you'll be changing a lot. You know, if you have inclement weather or something, you know, you don't want to have to track me down for that. So this pipes you in directly into it, and you guys can change that at your leisure. And you'll see, I mean, like you referenced the example of the turning billboard. Like it gets a lot of use. You know, and the best part is like the state art technology, and Ms. Anderson, you mentioned, you know, big old billboards. The way that these are built now is to change the ambient light depending on outside weather. So it's not going to be just bright color all the time. It'll change according to how dark it gets outside. If it's cloudy outside, it'll adjust accordingly. And this all has to be above board for TxDOT to even get approval as well. So the diodes that are emitting are certain lumens. It's in the agreement as well, the development agreement, where we talk about the specifics behind that, the specifications, I should say. So, you know, we wanted to kind of fall in line and not be extremely bright. We don't need it. We're not a highway billboard. You know, we're right on 174. People are pretty close.
And there's no action to be taken on this this evening.
We're just looking for some direction, and if y'all are okay with it, we'll move on to the next part of it.
Anybody have any serious objections?
I don't know.
Anybody else? You're concerned about the billboard being, it just looks trashy.
Yeah, I just don't want them, but I also recognize when one person on the board, and that's what makes us work.
You know, but your point's valid.
Yeah.
Your point is valid. I would not want another traditional billboard in the city. They just are not taken care of. They're all trashy. I like the idea of the stone around it.
I agree.
And you know, somewhere in the stone, they put in the city logo. If that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, we're right there, snap right dab in the middle of it. I mean,
I just think that would look.
I've driven this corridor for 15 years, and I've always thought, like, you know, the north side, where of the city where it starts to kind of, is that sports thing, that baseball, you know,
Yeah.
that's the beginning of the city right there. And I always thought that'd be a good spot to put some, monument sign. I think there is one now. But yeah, it would look great. It'll be 25 feet up in the air in bright blue, city of Joshua.
So, Gary, have you had a chance to look at this agreement? Is there anything in there that we need to?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to bring something back to you. I do have some revisions that I'd like to make. And then take in some of the additional issues that were brought up tonight. Talk to Mike and Amber. And
The only other thing that if we went forward with this is I would want to make sure that it's not something that's just going to be easily monopolized by whoever the big spenders are. I want to make sure that it's something that is going to be accessible to our smaller businesses within the community. I mean, sure, maybe it's not something that they can do long term, but make it something that they can actually.
Well, that's the beauty of it. So if you look at traditional contracts, you drive down the road, you'll see half of them are home builders. And you know why they're up there? They pay big money. Home builders pay big money. They also are happy doing 2-year contracts. Usually the average is a 12-month contract. With a digital board, I can have someone that just opened up for business down the street say, hey, Billy, I'm kind of new. I just want like a week. I want 1 day done. We're able to do that now. It's been a great boon for my business because I can fit in those advertisers that couldn't afford a 12-month contract. I got to pay for someone to install it. I got to go hang it, you know, print the vinyl. So, you know, there's costs associated with that. That's why we like to do 12-month contracts, a six month at the least. But with these digitals, you can buy a day, 2 days worth, 1 day worth, you know. So it's a good the barrier to entry is very low. Yes, but you'd be surprised. Fill it up 100% is you know, doing a bang up job. It's pretty hard to get that many people all kind of congruent because someone will want 2 weeks, and someone's 1 month. There's spaces in between where I can slot people in, you know. So even if someone was like, well, I want to be there for a month, well, I would have gaps between all these different contracts, and I could throw them in there, and it won't look any different because it doesn't matter if they're the 5th slot or the 8th slot. They're getting their time in no matter what. So the barrier to entry is very low. the cost is much lower than you're gonna get with Lamar. Quite frankly, you're right, they don't take care of the boards. They're in Louisiana, okay? And quite frankly, they set it and forget it, all right? It's a high margin thing for them when they do that. This is gonna be a little more work intensive. You know, the cost to build these things alone is gonna take me 6 years just to recoup the money to build this. But I'm willing to do the work because I've been driving this corridor. We grew up in the ranch in Glen Rose. So I've been driving this corridor for a long time. We got billboards in Glen Rose. And hopefully, you know, I'm not doing the Joshua Station too much longer. But I'm gonna wait till we get that right user next to the thumbs. But yeah, so I like I said, I'm not the selling kind, I'm the marrying kind. I'll operate this board forever.
So if everybody's okay with it, we'll let the attorneys get involved and get all the i's dotted and the t's crossed, and present it back next month.
So do we need to consider the different options on if it's just digital one side or if it later becomes digital on both sides, what the agreement would be? Or
Sure, yeah, I would,
or
so I would make the application to build it so it will, because when we build it, we're gonna build it to withstand 140 mile per hour winds, okay, so it won't fall down. So we're gonna engineer that so that so it's assuming that both sides will keep it up, so that would be my goal. And then in the event that we throw another screen on there, you know, are you wanting to advertise on that side as
I
well?
want to make sure that the city has access to both sides.
Okay. I'm completely fine with that. That's reasonable.
This is the only, this location that would fit, that we've got.
I don't know if it's the only well, it's the only one that we own
The city right away.
where it would
That's
fit.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, Joshua Station, there was a height requirement issue. And we've tried not to add a lot of those big signs up there in that area. This one, it's a pretty good spot. I mean, it's kind of almost center of the city and right on the main drag, and it'll be well above the restaurant signs. It's not going to block any of those. Those are going to even be below it. So you're still going to have visibility to all of them. And it's like I say, it's a pretty good spot. And it's not much good for anything else.
This is something that we have to put out to all the business owners in the vicinity so that they do have an input on this, if they have yay or nay say on it. Or we just do it.
No, we don't have to.
There's no
I
public
mean,
hearing.
there's no, we don't have to notify anybody.
More? Go ahead and start dotting i's and crossing t's and bring it back.
And Billy, if you could, if you could send the agreement in a Word document.
Yes,
to
absolutely.
to Mike, and you can forward to me.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we are going to skip item number 4 at this time. Going on to the next section is update from mayor and council members and updates from city staff members. Anybody do anything fun and exciting last month?
Played with monkeys on Monday.
Is now Monday is officially Monkey Monday. Oh, Alice was reporting it, and Molly's got some too. He thought he was coming to a meeting, a parks meeting. He had his pen and paper ready.
Their boss's day and staff did a very nice thing for Mr. Peacock, who has this affinity for monkeys apparently, so.
For the man, nobody can buy anything for anymore because he has everything.
Okay, hearing nobody has anything else, we'll go on to public forum. And three citizens here who wish to speak. Okay, hearing none, we'll move right on along. Okay, consent agenda, discuss, consider possible action on the meeting minutes for September 15th, 2022. Anybody have any comments on the minutes? No, your motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as stated.
I have a motion by Mr. Bridenstine, seconded by Mr. Kidd to accept the minutes as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay, moving into the regular agenda at this time, discuss, consider and possible action on approving an ordinance increasing the speed limit on East 14th Street between State Highway 174 Broadway and South Main Street from 20 miles an hour up to 30 miles per hour. Ms. Branson.
We're gonna just do a discussion on this item. I did prepare an ordinance for this, but Terry, my understanding is wants to make some adjustments or changes to it if it does proceed. Is that correct?
Is that on the speed limit ordinance? or-
Oh, never mind. That's on the other one. I'm sorry. This is on the, oh, I had the, is that an order on here? No, it's not. Okay. Speed limit, this would just apply to East 14th Street between State Highway 174 and Broadway and South Main. Kristen approached me the other day and was asking if we could modify the speed limit. He's had several citizens reach out to him, wanting it raised back to 30 miles an hour. My understanding is there used to be quite a few children that lived on that street. And so it was reduced just out of extra precaution to keep the kids safe. So I believe most of the children have since grown up and moved on. So we wanted to bring it to you for discussion on maybe increasing it back to 20 or to 30 miles an hour and then repurposing that expensive flashing sign somewhere else.
You get 30 miles an hour now, getting posted school.
No, it's
Just for certain hours. That kind of deal, right?
That's right.
That's what you're talking about there.
where the house burned.
Yeah. I thought it was 20.
It is.
It is 20.
all
Yeah,
on the
the-
road.
all the time.
I-
The previous times, this has come up a couple of times before and the room was full of parents over there that didn't want us to do that, but I think most of those kids are up and, because they're not here.
Have we reached out to? or is it-
No, and I'm assuming.
We didn't last time either.
Yeah,
They saw it, heard about it and showed up.
I'm assuming the ones that have reached out to Kristen probably live on that street. But, you know, I mean, that's posted on the agenda. Usually we get quite a few people that will show up for it, but
Several of those properties have sold and are rental properties now too, so.
and there's what, one or two for sale still.
Yeah, I know one person over there. I asked him what he thought about it. His kids are grown, he don't care. He thinks most of them drive 30 miles an hour anyway.
Well, yes, that's what that probably make a chief job.
So. If I want to make a motion,
I'll make a motion that we move 14th Street from 20 miles an hour all day to 30.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Brightenstein to increase the speed limit on 14th Street from 174 up to Main. Up to 20 to 30 miles an hour, seconded by
He married, he's very good.
Deputy Fleming.
just Mr. Fleming. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Okay, moving on to item number 2, discuss consider possible action on the addition of an ordinance of no through truck zones. We have been requested by the city attorney to discuss this and make sure that we're interested in it, but take no action tonight because he wants to rewrite the ordinance a little bit. There were some wording things that he felt could be done a little bit better. So, Ms. Branson.
This, I don't know if y'all have noticed, this area has become high traffic for commercial vehicles. I've noticed it more that since Kristen has brought it up, but our streets aren't very long. The lights are even longer and the roads through here are not made for commercial vehicles. So Kristen has put together a list of, I think 12 streets or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head what the count is. And we would like to redirect that traffic elsewhere onto other streets that can handle the heavy traffic and try to get them out of our downtown area. So I did draft an ordinance that I pulled from, I think, 2 different cities, just to kind of give you an idea of what it would look like. But it needs to be ran through Terry. And Alice had mentioned that he does have some changes or rewrites he'd like to do with it.
There's no ordinance getting trucks from certain city streets.
We have So
Put up sign years ago.
in speaking with Kristen, my understanding was we put up signs, but there's no ordinance listing those streets, so therefore they're unenforceable. They were just suggestions. So this would formalize.
I've always thought that we did have one, but Alice was not able to uncover one. I thought there was too. I thought. Surely. We've changed, we've added streets before. I think. She would, Alice looked for it and couldn't find it. Is that right?
It is a list of the streets and surround item two.
Some of these are currently posted no through trucks.
What I'm asking, will be 10-3 Thomas Spring Valley Road, Forest Lane. And it will extend between Beach and North Main Street and from 174 to 917. 904 is also known as Indian Hills, so. Okay, what's the, between Beach Street and North Main? And then from 174.
That kind of similar like the speed limit on speed limit change. It starts, it doesn't carry all the way through through the end of the street.
It's saying 10th Street between Beach and North Main.
Yeah.
And then 14th Street between.
Yeah, there was a grid on there and it didn't print.
If you do 14th Street, are they?
Down 917.
So some cities have no through truck zones and also truck routes. But to me, this is kind of a temporary solution because once TxDOT builds the underpass, I think it's going to take a lot of the trucks out of here and redirect them back to there. So I was working with Janet from TxDOT. She started looking at some truck routes. She recently did a similar project for the city of Cleburne. So this takes care of the zones on it, but you know, I think completion date for TxDOT is what, 2029, so.
Can we get them off and run this route and just run up 14th all the way?
Well, we can keep them off of the streets listed for sure, and then they can pick whatever route they want to at this point. And then what Kristen was saying is it's hard because depending on what developments or projects and stuff are going on, it moves constantly. So you may have a housing development and they're getting lumber deliveries for like a couple of weeks and then it's done. So then it moves again. And then like Atmos, I know they have materials and stuff delivered. That'll be more of a constant. So these are the known areas that we have a lot of trucks coming through that shouldn't be.
And the reason for wanting to keep them off these streets is what?
The streets are not made for it and it's congesting this area down here. These turns are not made for this. And it's,
Not made to handle a 80,000-pound truck.
you know,
But we can't keep them from turning on to 917 and then turning back in front of here to slow L. And
there's, if it's TxDOT, no, but I mean, we can't keep them off of everything, but we can at least limit it. So.
Do we really have a problem with trucks taking Cobb Street? Yeah, I don't think so.
It depends on-
Make it down
Yeah, they
Cobb
do
Street.
because
Make that.
I'll tell you why. For some reason, when they Google Orco down there, it takes them down Cobb and they get stuck at Cobb and Maine. Oh, they knocked down those little stone entryways that used to be there. They get stuck there all the time. I mean, it's not uncommon to see them down there. They have to make that right-hand turn to go back towards Orco. And
Country Club Road, what would they be using Country Club Road?
cut throughs, you know,
they're,
you can't stop them from, if they're deliveries, you
if they
can't.
have a delivery on that street, then they can be on it.
They have to have a reason to be
we got a
there.
couple of truckers split up that way. And they'll drive the trucks and park on the side of the road in front of the house. They'll say hi to the wife, kids, whatever.
So how does that impact that?
You're not supposed to do it anymore.
If they have
Be there.
a reason to be there, like if,
You're going home to see your wife.
If they're making a delivery to a business
Or-
or a home, then it's fine, but just cutting through it,
If they're going home, if they live there,
they need to find another route
they have.
if there is
Well, they
one.
need not get the fuck up that street.
Yeah.
So,
Those are some of the things that we're gonna come back and address.
Yeah.
To get more clarity, but one of
Yeah.
the things too is if you get stopped, if you show some sort of delivery form, that you're authorized to go on the street and you won't get a citation, you don't have that, you get a citation. We wanna have that spelled out, because if we issue a citation, it's a criminal prosecution, and we have to prove beyond to put out where they're going, so that gives us the ability to, the ordinance gives us the ability, especially if you have some sort of, form or something saying they're making delivery at that location.
Or I think, do some cities do like a placard or something that they can be given, or is it even worth
It's probably not worth it, because there's somebody that
just some type of proof?
trucks come and go, there's an Amazon truck coming in and making it like a one shot delivery, and they'll never come back, so.
Chief, I had just the basic question, how do you enforce this?
It's difficult to test, and it's double-edged sword. Unfortunately, with the limited trucks in some of these routes, you are forcing them to come down in front of City Hall, in front of the D and make this turn. And so we did discuss earlier in the year about some other options for moving a truck around or designating a road as a truck route to ease that burden of this, for lack of a couple of L terms. But to enforce it, yeah, you have to, in some cases, you have to follow the truck to see where they're going. And so in the case of County Road 1022, an officer would have to follow a truck down that road in its entirety to determine that that truck did not have a legitimate reason to be on the road, to make it delivery. Pickup, something along those lines. And so it's difficult to do it because of the very time. And because we're not NICSAP agency or CD agency, we can't stop a truck for inspection since we don't have that authority. So we have to rely back on the city ordinance to make that. In order on some of these streets again, to make that determination that that truck is just simply cutting through and not there for a bona fide purpose to make a delivery, make a stop, what have you. It requires that officer to keep a visual on that truck for that entirety. And so County Road 904, 1022, some of these streets are considerable lengths. And so that it poses a problem on the enforcement side.
Somewhere along my mind, years ago, we had this problem with trucks going into residential areas. It came, because a lot of the truckers came up here and they posed an argument saying that the loaded school bus has more weight than an unloaded truck. You know, because I know we did it, cited people down in Plum Creek, down behind my house, cited a record, and they cited another guy who wanted to park his semi in front of his house every day.
So he's talking about between 2007 and 2013, because there was a permit that you had to come and get from this office right here.
Those for the gas well trucks.
That's what he's.
I just, for some reason, I'm not disputing the fact that we can't find it. For some reason, I think there was an ordinance created back then.
Sitting here, I can't find anything,
Well, yeah,
but maybe it's been removed or amended or something.
that we had that problem with trucks, you know, in the city,
Mhm.
you know, carrying the road.
Certain
just-
vehicles are exempt from the regulation.
Yeah.
School buses being one of them.
No,
Yeah.
that's an
Or
argument.
trucks owned by a governmental entity, certain utility trucks are exempt, certain water trucks are exempt. There are exemptions under the federal statutes and the state statutes that exempt enforcement of certain vehicles. And so unless you're very versed in those rules, and commercial vehicle laws are very convoluted, most of them are from the federal government, and we convoluted at best, is probably the proper way to say it. So unless you're very versed in those rules and those regulations, commercial vehicle enforcement is difficult, and it's a very hard concept to grasp because of the exemptions and the exceptions that exist across the industry.
Just want me to do it because it's difficult.
If I can add one thing, and some of our attorneys prosecute these, and you're right. If you don't know it's a problem because you don't normally start looking out for trucks and where they're going. You don't pay much attention to it. But kind of what we have found is that in some of our cities that residents will tell you there's an ongoing problem with trucks, and that will kind of tip you off sometimes to give you, keep an eye open for if there is something going on. But you're right, trucks can go down these streets and no one sees it, and it's
So is the goal here to put the ordinance in place so that if it does become problematic in a specific area and citizens in that area reach out, then you don't have to then look for the ability to enforce it. You have the ordinance already back in there, so that if there is report problematic in the area.
If by the ordinance, there's a designated roadway, for example, this list of 14, if that ordinance exists and we receive complaints about trucks in that area, we can certainly go and take a look at it. And if we do find those violations, then we can enforce the ordinance. But again, depending on what the circumstances are, again, if it's a subdivision that's being put in, and the only way in and out to that location is through one of these areas that has been proposed as a no truck zone, we can't enforce that.
Right.
And so there's going to be certain circumstances where the residents may be seeing these trucks come and go, but we don't have the ability to enforce it because of those extenuating
And that's
circumstances. So.
But as far as also the other example of somebody that's coming up to their home, I don't see that as a through truck situation. Through truck situation is, I want to get from point A to point B, and I decide I'm going to go through point C to get there. I'm
A shortcut.
out of my house. Now, I understand we also have situations where are you allowed to park on that street? Is there walking,
But that's, I
that's
think by,
completely different.
another ordinance.
But I don't think that this ordinance should impact somebody that's going.
Let me have one of the exceptions that we put in those ordinances, an owner or operator of a commercial vehicle driving to and from their residence is an exception. Now, if they park it illegally, that's a different
That's
issue.
completely
That's
different, that's a completely different situation, but. I mean, if they have space. or
Yeah.
whatever that allows them to do that, then I think that's reason.
Not too many places on country club, you got space to park.
Yeah, I would,
Well, and you can't park there anyway because there's regulations about fuel capacity and all those trucks with their fuel capacity that park in their neighborhood anyway. But that's a different issue. It's a different ordinance that addresses that.
I just didn't realize how many. I knew that there was a lot of 18-wheelers that came through Maine in this area, but just since I started looking at this, I've been noticing, I mean, there's a lot. It's,
So what,
and these streets are
Well,
narrow and people
Well,
don't
that-
respect
that.
the,
I think that's probably the key. A lot of this is some of these streets are just so narrow that when you put a big 18-wheeler on it, you
Takes up the whole
shut
side.
down two-way traffic. The only place they have to move is into the bar ditch, and Country Club is that way. When you round that corner and cross that little creek and get on Country Club, it's a very narrow road. Thomas on here is a very narrow road.
in front of the fire station, that's narrow and
Yeah,
drops
it's,
off.
I mean, and that could be
And
the
people don't
logic behind some of
respect
this.
the stop lines and they pull it past them and then they really back up everything because you can't turn. And
well, they weren't,
14th Street over here is
drawn up.
this deep on the side of the street where they're having to cut it all the time.
So that stop mark wasn't put there thinking that an 18 would be making that turn.
Yeah. Cause I've asked on
So what-
14th to
what
move them back.
What drove this for us to get this started?
Kristen, I think, has had an interest in it for a while.
The Kristen or the citizens?
Uh,
About this? I mean, is this a citizen complaint or is this just something we're coming up with?
I'm sure there's been citizens complaints, but from what I got it from, it was from Kristen, but he
Well,
sees it.
Kristen's- What Kristen's finding is on some of these roads, like I know 904, 1022, they've become cut throughs to get to Chisholm Trail Park.
Yes.
And they'll come drive all the way through down Indian Hills from Chisholm Trail down to 174 and then turning going to Cleveland. And avoiding coming down 917 and.
Yeah.
And that road's actually.
It's a maintenance
He's
issue.
looking at it as a
Yeah.
maintenance issue for some of these.
I'd kind of like to see it 18 whether get down 10, 22.
It's not pretty.
Not following them, not patrolling it, they do it.
Yeah.
It's
He's
not.
right, they cut through, and they
It's
go to the distribution center over off Spark Drive.
Well, I spoke with Atmos and they have a lot of trucks.
Near
Is Atmos is kind of in a residential area, right?
So we're not gonna take any action on this. Do we want to? Other than do we want Terry to go ahead and rework the ordinance and bring it back?
We need some information. I'd like to see if there are any, citizen complaints and yeah, I think Terry should do some work on it and give us a rough draft that we could,
I think the citizen complaints
I
would
mean,
be,
if it's squared away. we can
Yeah.
make it.
Yeah.
But let's get some.
I think the citizen complaints would be situational, like pop-up developments and stuff like that, that probably are the biggest complaint. But that goes away after a period of time, so.
I understand the citizen complaints, but we gotta do something to protect our roads too. You know, we don't have the money to repair what we have.
I complain about my.
Yeah, but an ordinance is not gonna keep a road from getting damaged and.
If we
Well,
live-
an ordinance is not gonna stop. a truck from driving.
No,
It's gonna have to be an ordinance and then an enforcement officers that we're gonna have to pay, to follow a truck around until he gets down the road to prove that he actually did the ordinance. So I think we're in a position here where we're potentially building ourselves a speed bump for our officers to have to go over. You know, we're building a roadblock. I think it's unnecessary. Because I don't think this is the solution to stopping the roads from eroding. I think it's a much deeper issue. Person. You can put up all the signs you want to and make the ordinance, but the enforcement part of it's gonna be difficult. It's gonna cost the city money. A lot of money.
Well, in conversation, and I can't remember where or who, but a lot of these tickets that they get written, the companies will not pay for them. So whoever's driving the truck, a lot of times they will follow those signs because they're personally responsible for paying the
You-
tickets.
You usually are when you're.
Yeah.
When you're the licensed driver of that truck. You take-
Even though you're working for a
lot of it
company.
You take on that responsibility personally, that you'll drive it in the
Yeah.
proper.
So I hope that the signs would take care of most of it, because I think for the most part, they do
As long as. we
abide by
have-
them.
I guess what I'd like to see, Mike, is a laid out plan for these alternative routes. Because we can't just stop. We've got to get them away through.
To me, this is like phase one of getting that done and then try to figure out where it flows to from there. But,
I just don't want to stop somebody's
Yeah.
livelihood.
oh yeah, no, we
Or
won't.
affect, their ability to move goods from one area to another, that, you know. You know what I'm saying?
I understand.
In all fairness.
And I think once we have the ordinance in place, the ordinance won't necessarily name the streets. We could add those at a later time, right?
The ordinance, the streets can be changed at any time, but these are what he would like to see on here now. And then, an ordinance can be changed. If it creates another problem, then we go back and we amend the ordinance. I
Well,
think
when it
it's-
comes back.
Yeah.
When it comes back with all the T's and I's.
So when you write the ordinance, will you put this list of streets in?
Sure,
the
yes, sir,
ordinance?
yes, sir.
Okay, but does it have to be? Can it not just like we just
Well,
change the speed limit? Is that?
Well, we
change
have
the
to,
ordinance?
on
Yes.
those through trucks, you have to have areas, specified
Specified.
areas where they
Either way.
can't go
Okay,
to enforce it.
okay. So we'll let you work on that and we'll look at it again.
I'll bring
next
it back for next month's meeting.
month. Okay, everybody okay with that? All right. We'll move on to the next item. Number 3, discuss consider possible action on an ordinance amending chapter 2 of the Animal Control, Article 2.01, General Provisions, Article 2.2, Impoundment, Article 2.03, Rabies and. Zoonosis. Article 2.05.
Told him to Google it.
And Article 83.00 animal control teams. Ms. Francie, please explain why.
This shouldn't make fun. I have to do this.
We put it there to kind of stump you up a little bit.
What do you do?
I just wanted to see if anybody would actually Google it.
I didn't do it. I admit.
So Carla and I, and the ladies at the shelter have been working diligently on trying to update some of the animal control ordinances. We've done a few in the past since I've been here, and then these are a few more that we wanted to tackle. The definitions and then the impoundment in redemption, or just because we're making adjustments to the other, so there's some changes and some verbiage. The tethering of dogs and other animals, that's related to a law change. It changes the specifications of how a dog can be tethered. You can no longer tether them with a chain. They have to be on a trolley. Is that the right word? The trolley has to be so long. They have to have shelter, food, water. So this is just an update to abide by the state regulation. I did provide red line copies of each one of these so you can see what the changes are. This was a lot of work. So identification tag and microchip requirement. Right now we require city licenses for any dogs that reside in the city. It's an annual renewal, $5 for if they're sterilized and 10 if they're not, and you have to renew this every year. Historically, I don't think we've been very proactive with keeping up with these. We have only a few that are current right now. It's a lot of work administratively, and there's a lot, it costs a lot more to keep up with than what the licenses produce. And in talking to some other shelters about why they changed theirs, and they posed a good question. Well, why do you do it? And I was like, honestly, I don't really know why, other than just it generates revenue, but like I said, it costs more to implement it and keep up and track with it. So what I'm proposing is to change it to requiring a microchip. A microchip is a one-time deal. Once it's in there, it's lifetime of the animal. So it's going to be cheaper in the long run for the residents, but it also is going to make the shelter's job a lot easier when residents as animals get out. If they're microchipped, then they're going to be able to return it back to the owner much quicker. That's shorter time and that's spent in the shelter, and a lot fewer resources trying to track down where the animal goes to. So I'm proposing to do away with the annual registration or replace it with a microchip ordinance.
So would that be like a one-time?
Yeah.
So the one time you're registering, here's my microchip. That would be so
And if they don't have one, it's, yeah.
But we're just doing away with the city tag because they started that back in the 80s, I do believe. And I mean, like right now, we only have maybe 50 people that actually do it in the whole city.
And tags get lost. That microchip doesn't go anywhere.
How do the microchip, who keeps the database and how do we know 4 years from now?
So part of the ordinance, they're required to keep that contact information up to date. So if you brought a pet in that already has a microchip, we've got a database that they use that they can key in that information to. But if they're not currently microchipped, the shelter can microchip them for them. We came up with a $15 price. It's one time, so they save money over after the 4th year. But
She's asking is, where's this stored and how is the database maintainable?
yes,
Or is it maintained by us? We have to maintain.
it's maintained by us.
It's
yeah.
Nationwide.
It is nationwide, yeah. But we have access to all of the databases.
So I move into Joshua, I bring my dogs that have been chipped
Mhm.
where I lived before. Do I have to come to you and give you those chip numbers?
Yeah, we just need the chip number and we can read them. If you don't know what the number is, we just use a reader and then,
But you still have to bring them in to be registered.
no, not unless you have the chip number. If you can tell us what the chip number is, then they can key it into the system and
But you still have to register.
yes.
is there a fee involved in that, or do we just contact you and say, hey, I moved here, here's $20, here's the chip, you'd be fine? And
Yes, basically, yes.
so it's a notification. I mean, it's a free
Yes,
registration. so
yes.
your dog is
The only thing that costs is if they don't have a microchip. They can either go somewhere else and get a microchip, but the shelter is able to do the microchip for them.
And so are we doing away with any sort of ordinance requiring rabies vaccination? I know that
No,
the
that's state law.
has-
That's
Yeah.
Right, but I know at one point our registration.
You had to show proof.
clearly was not
Yeah.
allowed to do
Yeah.
vaccination.
Yeah, you just have to, right now, you just have to show proof. And then, like, if they got a call and they were out, they have the right to check. And the citizen has to provide proof of rabies. So
So the 3 year would now be.
No, it's.
it depends on your vet, because I did some research on that because
I have
Johnson,
two, and I'm aware that there's one vet in the city of Joshua that's strongly against it and many, many others.
Well, Johnson County has a high concentration of rabies cases. But if you really dig into it, there's not a lot of, it's very few domestic animals. It's mostly wildlife. And one of the ordinances that I was looking at, their ordinance stated to where if it's a 1 year, whatever the vet note says that it expires, if it's a 1 year or 3 year, that's what they went by. So as long as they can show proof of rabies and it's current, whatever the expiration is by the
So then, okay.
But that's not what our current ordinance says. Our current ordinance says.
1 year.
1 year.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
But my vet says 3 year is
Yeah.
valid.
Yeah.
So
Acceptable.
Yeah.
we need to update the ordinance.
Well, that goes away. That goes away. They just have to show valid proof of rabies. So whatever the expiration date is on that rabies paperwork, then that's good.
I got a question. How many dogs or animals, cats, dogs, whatever, combined or registered in our microchip in the city? But compared to, people, if you drove to see them, which I know you do, you see dogs all the time. Is there an address tied to that microchip?
And a phone number.
So there's a whole bunch of people out there, I can make right off the boat of my hand that don't have microchipping.
Well, that comes like, we don't go knocking door to door. It's gonna be like if we have an issue with that resident with their animals, then that's when we go out there, they have to get everybody current with the registration, which will be microchip and a current rabies vaccination.
But we don't actively keep a database saying, hey, he's got a dog and it's not microchipped or rabies. But I do, that's what I'm asking.
Well,
How
in our,
are we gonna disseminate, all this information?
Well, it only come into play if we pick the dog up.
yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
What she's saying.
I mean, if you really wanted to enforce it, we could send a letter to every single homeowner in the city of Joshua, letting them know and then mark them off the list. But I don't think it's that, yeah.
I think it would be beneficial because I lived here for a very long time. I worked with a rescue that works very closely with Carla, and I didn't realize I was supposed to register my dog.
A lot of people
A
don't.
lot of people
Yeah.
don't.
Now you're telling them, yeah,
Well, so one of the things take care of that.
I don't pay well for a trash bill on time.
I got a problem on that end of it. So one of the
It's-
things we
yeah.
talked about in the control board meeting was a situation where we could roll it out citywide with some promotional type
Yes.
Yeah.
to the idea of registering.
Yeah.
And if we have an electronic billboard, we can use it for that.
Did you know?
Not saying whether, thank you for that later.
Immediately. But we're not gonna tell her that.
Carla has, yeah.
But no, we did discuss that. We do the yearly, vaccination things and
Yeah.
clinics and yearly adoptions and.
Yeah.
And it would be easy to roll that in.
I would rather them spend their time on doing communities community connections and stuff like that than chasing annual renewals. I think it's gonna be one of those that's all on education and the amount of time.
You're getting the
Yes.
information. I mean, whenever I lived over there by the park, I could call and tell them, like, we know exactly who those dogs belong to, because, and it was easy enough. for
Yeah.
them. But I think just informing people more about.
Yes.
this.
Yes.
And working also with the FFAs and
Yeah.
the 4-H's in the schools and working with the community and through other means also will
Yes.
also get the word out.
Yeah.
And maybe in conjunction with events,
Mhm.
Well, we used to do that with,
Yeah.
if they, you know, we had the rabies and
Yep.
restoration tagging.
I think COVID kind of put a stop on some of that, and we're talking about getting some of that going again.
Well, she has, they've got
Be part of it.
3 or 4 shot clinics already on the schedule. They've already done like 3 adoption clinics just over the last couple of months. They've been, Kaylee and Kelly went to the Railroaders game and took some dogs out there, and they've been doing great. So yeah, they were there.
The area set up and lots, I mean, people flock to that area.
And we're fixing to do one at the,
The Boo Bash.
yeah, the Bubash and then the truck and trade and that American Steel.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna have a
Yeah.
truck and trade.
If
They're
they had
doing-
handouts.
Yep, flyers and stuff like that. Yep. Yep.
It's gonna be, I think it's something that's gonna be good.
It's just trying to be proactive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to be proactive. you know.
I mean, we're going from $55, $60 up to $140.
Yes. So let me,
There's an explanation.
yeah, do you want to kind of stay in order so we don't miss anything on the keeping of livestock? We had amended this ordinance last year, I think, and somehow or another we missed getting fowl, AKA chickens, included in it. So this just adds the keeping of fowl. I think it's 4 hens, no roosters.
Well, grandfather's in, right?
6. Yeah, it's 6, yeah. So that just cleans up that ordinance. That was the only real change. And then
The end of the day is down there's got issues.
um,
Hey, I
Animal-
have roosters, so,
sorry,
My neighbor does. I hear it very
I thought the law said you can have so many chickens even in a residential.
Yeah.
Same on those. Yeah.
yes.
You can't have root.
So we can't have roosters.
Nope.
Oh, voting on this one.
And then the last one, as you were saying, the animal control fees. Currently, right now, our adoption fees are, was it 55 for a dog and something, what for a cat?
And then it's 50 for a cat.
50 for a cat. So any animal that leaves and is adopted, they're not spayed or neutered. So it creates a lot of issues. A very high percentage of people do not ever meet the criteria for the adoption contract. They're not getting them spayed. They're not getting their rabies vaccination, showing proof that they did get that. So they're sending out certified mail left and right, trying to get these people to abide by that. And then it ends up in court here, and it's a ticketable offense. So the tracking takes up a whole lot of time, but the biggest thing is I would like to be able to send out a dog that's had all of its shots, that's been fully vetted. Whereas they're just sending them out with, they've been wormed,
Instead of shot.
and a set of shots, and that's about it. So yes, it is going up significantly, but they're making minimal, if not anything at all, on the adoption fee. It basically just covers them being fully vetted. And then we've not been doing heartworm testing or the feline leukemia testing. So I don't feel right adopting out an animal that we don't know if it's healthy or not. And it does happen. Heartworms are prevalent. So I would feel a lot better knowing that we're adopting out animals that are healthy and reducing the chance of them being returned back to the shelter. So
Do you think this increase will slow down adoptions?
we do run shelter specials on being able to clear the shelter. It may, but how much is a bag of dog food now? And she does have, if there's a special circumstance,
Let's not have several comments.
she does have the authority to reduce fees in special circumstances too, that we did write into the ordinances last time. I would like to start pushing, going back to communication with the community. Burleson does a neat thing that they do, cage sponsors or kennel sponsors, where they'll pay for whatever's in that kennel will be fully vetted, or they can donate to sponsor an adoption. So I'd really like to focus on building relationships with the community, and maybe you've already got 6 dogs in your house and you can't have any more, but you want to help the shelter out with covering some of the costs. So yeah, I do worry that it might deter some of the adoptions, but I also think they're probably less likely to bring stuff back too if they're that dedicated to it. They do have, I don't want to say they have a high return rate, but it's more than what I would hope. They do allow people to do trial adoptions to see if they fit in. So some of those are from that. If they fit, great. If they don't, we want them to bring them back to us and we'll find them a better fit. So
Johnny, you were saying you think that these.
I think it's too high. I don't see people going out $1,040 for a cat. I was saying, my wife adopted a cat in Burleson 2 years ago. It's microchipped and spayed, costs us $30.
well, in Burleson charges $140 now,
I didn't- It's been 2 years ago.
but they may have had some type of special event or something too, but
No, we just went up there and got them.
okay.
Well, we had discussed it being that high, at that price because of the cost of things like she said.
You go to a vet clinic and you're gonna pay $300 to fix something. Mhm.
Admin it takes to chase down an adopted animal that they're not sending in the data. Did you go and take it and get it spayed? Did you? Because those are requirements.
Yes,
They have to have it done, and it's
But they
probably
weren't
cheaper for
getting
us to do it.
done. We were having to spend time to go get it done, and then some animals were coming back, getting surrendered because they got a certified letter and they're like, well, I'm just not gonna do it. And they bring the animal back, so then we incurred that.
So the way I,
cost.
yeah, the way I looked at the fees was they're gonna have to pay that. Yeah, they may only pay a $50 adoption fee or a 55, but they're gonna go spend another 100 or 300 or 400 if you take it to a vet to have it adopted, I mean, to have it sterilized.
So if they go through Back Check, which is discount.
Yes.
To our rescue. agency,
Mhm.
Sterilization is $70 a month.
Yeah.
Then you've got their microchip cost, anywhere from $15 to $30. Heartworm testing is $20. Rabies is $15. So it is a very fair fee.
Yeah, I
And
put the
that's
pencil
not
to it.
That's not
Yeah.
going to your regular vet who's going to.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a discount.
I broke down the cost of the microchip, the cost of the heartworm testing, the feline testing, the shots. I broke down everything and it is right at that. But we use what's the place in Burleson?
yeah,
TCAP. They won't sterilize anything over 5 years of age and 80 pounds. So there's gonna be a few that we're gonna have to take to the vet and have them and pay a couple $100 to have them sterilized. So
So will this allow us to bring in a policy once they're determined that their stranglehold is us, or we just have.
Yes.
sterilization done?
yes,
It's Johnson County is over.
yes.
Oh.
We pull from Cleveland and Joshua, and it's unreal. And if anything, it's just making sure that they're sterilized before they go back, so that it's there, because a dog out of the shelter, they're flightless. I
Yeah.
mean, I've had to chase them down more than once. And at least if they're sterilized, we've done something to try to.
And that way, because we did get a lot of people when it's that time for them to have them spayed and neutered, and they don't call us, all of them, we send them a letter, and then they're like, here, never mind, and they just get the dog back. Well, if it's already done, then we're
Yeah.
not getting that dog back.
And not to mention, I don't know if you've had a dog spayed or neutered and have dealt with the cone for 2 weeks. I would gladly pay an extra, I don't know how much, to not have to deal with that. And they're already through the stitches or the glue or whatever. They're through the pain meds. They're through being weird. They're already kenneled where they're at. So it makes it a lot easier on the people. But I did a complete test breakdown. So for a canine, a heartworm test is $4.99. the DHPP, which I'm not sure what that is, it's $6.95. The Bordetella vaccination is $7.03. The rabies is $5. So just vaccinations alone, it's $23.97. Sterilization can range from 55 to 65. If they're in heat, it's another $10. If they're already pregnant, it's another $20 to $40. So sterilization runs 85 to 115. So you're looking at anywhere from 108.97 to 138.97 just for a dog. Believe it or not, cats are actually more expensive. Their vaccinations are, there's 3 different vaccinations. They're $27.11. Sterilization ranges 92.11 to 122.11. So total cost range is 119.22 to 149.22. So some may be cheaper than others depending on weight, age, and if they're pregnant already or in heat. So we are making nothing really off of it.
What's it cost to house a dog a day?
Hmm?
What's it cost to house a dog a day?
Oh, gosh. I think we figured it up one time before and it was right around with the food, daily care, it was like almost $40 a day.
So if this fee causes people to not come in as often, you're gonna wind up spending more money housing these animals.
They're full now as it is. They're full all the time.
But I don't. The way, I mean, I was concerned with that as well when we first started talking about it. But after going through and pricing and talking to the other cities and looking back, and I was like, yeah, we do get a lot back that people just, because they don't want to have to mess with it.
Right.
But so if we did it, then that's getting more out and we won't get them back. Because it's really hard to adopt out a puppy when it's 6 months old now, because they don't want to get it done than it was when they were small.
Because they do have to wait. Like if they're a puppy, they can't sterilize it until they're 6. I don't know what the age is, but like I said earlier, nothing is set in stone. If we end up creating an issue, then we need to be proactive in coming back and adjusting it. If we feel like the fee is creating issues, I'll be the first to come back and say, we need to make some adjustments. Either way, the shelter is not a revenue generator. We're never going to make money off it. It's not the intent. So,
Trying to slow down. A little bit.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, my personal thought is if somebody can't afford $140 to adopt a dog, they can't afford the food and the maintenance of that dog or cat or whatever, they can't afford the food and maintenance,
Mhm.
then it's gonna take. Animals are just as expensive as kids.
Yeah.
And, if you can't afford that for a dog, you just don't need to be having
Yeah.
it. That's my personal opinion. So, any more discussion on this?
My only question is, how is this going to impact the rescues that pull through? So the city is already incurring the cost. With the rescues that you work with frequently, that you have an established relationship with,
it's still gonna be the same.
so the city will incur the cost.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we do now. I mean, I don't.
They're taking them
Same
straight to the
like-
same place to have them fixed as we
Right,
are. Yeah.
so, yeah, so we pull from there and then our rescue pays for the cost and
Mhm.
our adopter
Yeah.
pays it. So the city's going to incur the cost.
Yeah.
But then we're going to pull the dog from the rescue.
And get it placed
And
probably
we get the
quicker.
money back from the
Yeah.
doctor, not the city.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to encourage you to try
Right.
to do further. I was just curious how that was going to.
No, I mean, it's the same way now.
Okay.
So, I mean,
Well,
if we're not getting anything moved, that's when we start hauling at rescues. So when, if it takes that, then that's what it takes.
But I think, like you said, we've got the numbers so close. They're going to spend that no matter what. Because I don't think they leave the rescues unless they're fully vetted, right?
Right,
Right.
Yeah.
But the rescue, but we cover that cost.
Yeah.
The city's not covering that cost.
Yeah.
The rescue does, because the rescue gets that back.
Right.
once we
When you
adopt the dog.
yeah.
I was just curious if it was going to be transfer of responsibility for the fund that the city covers and
Well, does the rescue pay the adoption fee or no?
no. They never have. And if we start doing that, then we might as well hang it up.
Yeah, it would,
because
it
they're
would
not
definitely be a
stopping.
problem. I think it might be something to consider though, if it does become.
Yeah.
To look into the
Or at least maybe at half.
trusted relationships where you
Yeah.
know if they, you know they're not going to, then make those allow them to go ahead. Because I know some of them, they come in, they speak to you frequently
Mhm.
and they pull relatively quickly.
Yeah,
Know that they're going to take on that responsibility. And they are going to make sure that happens so that those costs are then covered by the rescue that
Yeah.
want to.
But then you get into, if we'll have a standing appointment, say every Monday to go to TCAP. So I guess if it happens in that window to where they haven't made it there yet, because they pull them quickly. As soon as we put them up on the website, we usually get a call. So maybe that's the solution.
Yeah.
Let them, because I mean, and you'll know which ones aren't good about getting it done and not. So maybe that's the workaround if we get into that situation. Yeah.
yeah,
I think
Yeah.
it's really just,
Yeah.
you have an established relationship with.
yeah,
them.
it's just gonna be kind of like a hit and
Yeah.
miss type thing. I can't.
Just
tell you
whenever they get there, yeah.
specifically. It's just gonna have to be that moment, you know?
Yeah.
So,
It's fair to
But
look
I didn't think about that. Yeah. Yeah.
If there's an issue, opportunities.
Yeah.
to-
No, that's good. I didn't
I
think about that.
we're headed in the right direction by doing this. So, it's just like she said, you know, and I'll be the first one to come knocking on her door saying, hey,
Yeah.
there was some issues.
And I hope she would. Yeah. And she
You
will.
know,
Yeah.
So if it comes down to that, we can lower it back down. But let's try it. I mean, we ain't got nothing to lose.
We'll be tracking these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
these costs and things too,
Yeah.
so we can see feedback.
Yeah.
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 Most
Um,
definitely.
Some of the other fees that we had just adjusted some of the other fees, nothing huge. It was
Yeah.
just inflation essentially. We were way behind.
That was the only one that really stood out.
Yeah.
to me was that
Yeah.
Big of an increase, but.
I mean, that makes
what
me
you're-
nervous.
What you're doing now to take them out, or to
Mhm.
have them ready to go now.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It makes me nervous making that adjustment because I do worry about it slowing down, getting them out of there. But then I go back to what you said. I mean, I just paid $45 for a bag of cat food last night.
It's,
A little bag of cat food. So
And plus too, you have to think, we're taking them down there to get them fixed. We drop them off, we're coming back, and then we're having to go back to pick them up. So
now they don't have
that's a
to.
lot of time
Yeah.
and plus gas. So to me, everything's working out like it's supposed to.
Yeah. And then that's keeps the person or the adopter from having to do that take off work. So, I mean, I think there's some,
any more discussion? Okay, so I have a motion.
Make a motion to approve the changes.
Okay, we have motion by Mr. Kidd, seconded by Mr. Walter, to the approved. Ordinance for the animal control. Is there any further discussion?
I got a question. One is back to the chickens. Okay, in agricultural, what stops us from having roosters and 10 or 15 chickens?
If it's zoned agricultural.
Well, that's the whole point I'm gonna get to in another minute. you
You're
know?
still within the city limits.
But there is a difference. There is a difference in true zone agricultural land than there is. This ordinance is more leaning towards residential.
Right.
Smaller R1 or R1Ls. Yeah. Is where that chicken restriction came in.
The problem I have is years ago, the city turned this from agricultural into R1. I think it's R1L, but I think it's R1. So it's still residential, you know. So
Yeah, but your grandfather ended that.
I shouldn't be grandfathered this and the existing power, as Mr. Peacock would say.
Yeah, you're not.
I would
chicken
say
farm, but you're.
It's, what is that term you use?
You're a rule breaker.
That's what, I got one more, we'll get out. Now, every once in a while, I kept reading this, I was getting blurry. Pigs, every once in a while, I allow a agricultural pig, not an agricultural pig, but
FFA.
FFA pig on
Yes.
my property for the kid raises it when it's gone after the.
We
you didn't
created,
change any of that.
no, we left it.
Okay,
No, we just put that in last year, for those that have FFA projects. We've got a process, there's an application for it and everything. Nobody's asked for it yet, but we're getting into that season, so I'm curious.
Does need to be a registration getting filled out.
Yeah.
To notify the city that that's happening.
And then the city will go,
That's not necessarily restricted, but it's-
Yeah.
there's a file. of
Right.
paperwork.
then the city will go and look at the facility and make sure it's not going to create any issues. And I think the neighbors have to provide letters too, that they're okay with it. So.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. We'll take a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay, item number 4, discuss, consider possible action on a resolution authorizing and approving the Joshua Type A Economic Development Corporation to execute a real estate contract and any and all documents necessary to purchase an approximate 3.73 acre tract of land located behind Brook Street Grocery at Joshua Station and providing for an effective date. Speak up.
I'm gonna let Ms. Martin, who's been fighting so hard for this, share her news.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am very pleased to present this item to you tonight. I do want to make an adjustment. After we have the survey done, it's actually 3.554 acres and not the 3.73. This property has been earmarked for an exciting project that's coming up, and that is a dinosaur museum. And right now we are looking at a 30,000 square foot facility. The project we've been working on basically since I got here last November, and it's finally coming to fruition. And the Type A board earlier this month approved this as well. So this is this 3.554 acres will, as I said before, house approximately a 30,000 square foot dinosaur museum that's going to be fully interactive. The Type A board will be granting this property to this project. This is probably going to be approximately a $30 million project that's going to be funded in a partnership with, solely funded by the Seventh-day Adventist University and the 50C3 project that's going to be the museum. So the only money that we'll be putting up is for this property. I've talked to most of you about this already. But if you have any questions.
I have a question. Do we have anything in writing from the college or the 501c3, like a letter of intent that tells us this is really going to happen?
So we are working on that right now. And as a matter of fact, with Dr. Wood, we're also creating a business proposal to take to their board as well, so they know exactly the scope of this whole project. So he's getting with the president of Swan U as well as Dr. Wood, and that letter is coming. I don't know if it makes you feel any better. I did attend a gala last month, and they were spreading it like wildfire in this gala. They were already, proposing donations and doing the footwork for that. So they are fully committed. We were waiting until we actually had this under contract. We already have the architect on board. We have the engineers on board, and they're already starting to work up all of the plans. The university has already funded that money for that. So that shows a pretty big commitment, because that's an extensive contribution from here.
But they're retaining ownership of the property until this is complete.
Correct. Correct.
I understood we retained ownership of the property until the property is paid for.
Yes. It's kind of twofold. We were going to pay this out, finance it until they were done with it, or until the A board saw the opportunity. But we don't want to hand that over until the actual building is completed.
So we'll own the property to ensure that it turns into what we're.
Start construction.
Until we're sure it's what we want.
Is there any possibility we can use our hot tax towards this?
I don't believe so. I've been looking at that on and off today, and museums are one of the categories, but you have to meet two thresholds, and one is the heads in the bed thing, and I don't know that this is gonna get there. It could. From talking to some of the people I've talked to, and I used Glen Rose. That's who I called and talked to some folks over there, because the dinosaur business is what drives that economy over there in large part. And they have not used any for that. I think it's a stretch. But I don't know. I mean, this is a little bit different deal. We're talking about having interactive stuff and having people actually get down and clean the bones from, take the dirt stuff, and there's going to be some interactive stuff. There could be people staying overnight. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell. But from my first glance at it, in speaking with Jeff Moore, who kind of is the king of economic development in the state, he thinks it would be a stretch.
So what is that requirement? How often? Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts did a periodic camp where they how frequent would that happen?
So what I've read,
I don't know.
yeah, what I've read pertaining to the hot tax is anytime it brings in tourism, they don't necessarily have to be staying the night just to go to the dinosaur museum. They can just occupy the dinosaur museum for an hour or two, and that would still qualify.
No,
So
that's not correct. They have to make two steps. Tourism is one. But the final step is they have to spend. Heads in the bed is the same. Am I correct? That's what, and that was what Jeff said. And
That's what I've always been told.
yeah, I've reread it numerous times because I've been trying to find uses for that money where we can plug that in and use it, because after so long it has to go back. But I don't want to do something that, and then it get challenged, then us have to either pay that back, or I don't know how that would work, but I will continue to look at that. I mean, there may be some component of this that could feed that, could qualify into that. And if there is, then of course we'll take a look at it. But right now I've not found it.
I mean, we have the funding to cover those. We have the money for this, but we ordered other stuff, which is why we're financing it out. The Taipei does have the money to cover this stuff.
Anybody else have any questions?
And they did approve the purchase in their meeting.
right.
So the only thing that's dinosaurs is not any other thing to it for children's museum or?
They're looking at several aspects that's gonna be included. I think one of the coolest things is had to be mentioned before, is it is completely interactive. You know, when you go to a museum and you see yeah, and then they're behind the wall and they're actually digging it out. They want the kids to be able, they're gonna have like 8 stations where the kids actually have that Dremel tool and they're picking it out. And where Dr. Wood, his argument is, these are fossils. These have been beaten up. Kids aren't gonna hurt it. I want them to touch it. I want them to feel it. I want them to experience that. So it's fully interactive, and we're gonna have a really cool dig pit where it's not just sand with some, bones in there. They're gonna have to, they're looking at having some summer camps, some week-long summer camps, to where maybe that would be the heads in the beds, and to where maybe eventually we could use that hot tax. But this is going to be a type of museum that doesn't really exist anywhere. I've been researching, I've been traveling, I've been looking at some of these other museums. We've been to Perot. Perot's been a wonderful networking for us, and they've providing us information and numbers, and they're 100% supportive of us as well. We're far enough away, and we're going to be providing something that they don't, and they're actually excited about this as well.
I like it. What's the final cost of the property?
It will be $1,393,461. And that's at $9 per square foot, which is actually a really a good deal.
And that's with that final square footage after the survey. and
Correct.
All that.
Correct.
Okay, and this is being financed how?
So we are partnering with Pinnacle Bank. They are just waiting on the final approval tonight for us to move forward on that paperwork on that contract with Pinnacle Bank. We wanted to stay local and they are more than happy to partner with us as well.
And the term of the contract with the price? I'm just doing this all to get it on record.
Sure.
Just
You,
so,
as far as with the bank,
yes.
we're looking at a 20-year just to keep the payments low for now. But we did specify that we wanted to be able to pay it off early with no penalty and they were fine with that.
Minimum of 5 years.
We had talked to the A board and said right now we're looking at 5 years to pay it off in full, which we don't see, a problem. But if we have more projects coming on, we might extend it. So we're not spending all of the general fund that's in the.
In the document here, it says the property is 3.73, and then just down below it, it says again approximately 3.55.
Yes, it does. And that's why I'm gonna go through and we're gonna initial some of the areas too that we would feel more comfortable if our A board and Billy also initialed all the areas that are crossed out in the document as well. And that is going to be, I like a clean document. So we're gonna go ahead and fix that as well and then have everybody sign it once it's approved.
You just got those numbers, right?
Yes.
It wasn't, you
Yes,
didn't have
this-
them soon
yeah.
enough to.
They
get
were
them.
sent out to you guys before we got the final survey.
In this motion, are we authorizing?
That'd be the type A president signing it.
Okay. Sure she knows.
I can spend it here.
As long as-
Just not paying your bill.
One of the things I personally have a little bit of an issue with is, once again, we're obligating our taxpayers to a debt without their approval. We just did the bond last month. And we've got that $1 million we put into refund the debt. And here we're going for 1.393461. And again, our citizens have not had any chance to have any input in it one way or the other.
But is that what the intent of the type A board for us to?
Yes. I mean, I get what you're saying, because it's sales tax money, but it's still city money and all that. But the way the boards are set up is it's.
There was an election board opposing the type A candidates for economic development purposes, like both type A and type B.
Type A is for like community services like parks.
And as far as financing it versus paying it out, and we do have the ability to do that, but there are some really cool things.
Yeah.
That we also want to spend the money on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in type A. You guys are intensity from time to time.
Yes.
Well, that may offer.
Okay.
Some opportunity to happen to hot taxes.
And figure out.
Well, and I don't want to say there's nothing we can use it for. We can't use it to build the building, but it can be used for advertisement and signage directing them to it. There are certain things that it can be done for, but for the construction of the building, that's a stretch. Or buying the land. I mean, that. We would be able to do that.
That's free space.
Unless we put a.
You're gonna have two sides on it.
Yeah.
Did we?
That we accept this.
May I have a motion by Mr. Kidd, seconded by Mr. Walger, to accept approve the Joshua Type A Economic Development Corporation to execute a real estate contract and any and all documents necessary to purchase a approximate 3.554 acre tract of land located behind Brooksford Grocery at Joshua Station and improving and providing it for an effective date. What effective date? Do we need to-
It's effective whenever we approve it.
So it'd be effective.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any more discussion?
I'm sorry, Mayor, one thing, the contract does require your signature on it. So if you want to include the authority for the mayor to sign, if we need that.
So.
Okay. So the motion has been amended to allow the mayor to sign as necessary. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? It's unanimous.
6-0.
I would have to see that letter as soon as possible. Okay. All right, item number 5, discuss consider possible action on a resolution approving the submission of a grant application for the alert instructors to provide ongoing area training project. Mr. Kesselhorn.
All right, so I apologize for the title. It's, don't worry,
I think you did it on purpose.
you might have, that's okay. The title of these grants is not made up by us, and so it's, you can thank the governor's office for that. This is just simply, much like last month, this shows the governor's office that you as a council are in support of us submitting a grant to seek reimbursement for costs to send officers to the alert training. The alert training is actually free, but the cost incurred for per diems, hotel costs, and travel expenses, and things like that. We can seek reimbursement from the governor's office for that. So there's no finite amount. It's just as the expenses are incurred, we can seek reimbursement from the governor's office.
And then what all exactly is that training include?
This is, so the acronym stands for Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training, otherwise known as active shooter training.
We currently have Officer Wright, who's certified in the.
He is a craze instructor. We don't have an alert instructor, but we have secured 4 positions coming up in a few months to have 4 instructors for the actual full alert training. In addition to that, Officer Smith is going next week to a SHIELD or a Solo Rapid training. So it's a training course through the same organization for solo officer deployment. So instead of arriving on scene, that officer doesn't have to wait for a second officer to form a team to make entry and address the threat. That allows that officer in the training, of course, he can come back and train everybody else, so that that officer on scene can act in a solo capacity. And of course, we have a SHIELD training coming up. We're sending several officers to that, and then a SHIELD instructor school in February, where Sergeant Wright is going to go to that and he'll be able to teach SHIELD usage, and it's a broader version of that 2-day course. But all of this is the focus of this is to enhance our ability to respond to these critical incidents.
Anybody else have any questions?
I think it's a great idea. I really commend the chief for the training. It's in my book, law enforcement is training and training and training. So it's always something out there.
Anybody else? Okay. Entertain a motion. Move for approval. Okay, that was a motion. The new guy and. I'm sorry, I got so big. We're good. Seconded by Mr. Kidd to approve the submission of grant application for the approved instructors. All those, or any other discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Chief, I appreciate how you're working hard on the training situation. So we hear a lot of things. Okay, next item, discuss consider possible action on the annual Johnson County Interlocal Cooperation Agreement for Dispatch Service for the budget year 22-23. Chief.
So this is the agreement that is a yearly agreement with Johnson County Sheriff's Office to provide dispatch services for the city. I did not see any changes from last year other than the cost. And I am happy to announce that our cost for this year is actually going down by $1,600. I noticed, so not much in the overall grand scheme of things. but we are.
We set one of our own back there. That's another thing.
Anybody have any questions about this?
No, it looks good. Yes, I just don't like the discount.
Working on it.
All right. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we approve the annual Johnson County Local Corporation Agreement for Dispatch Service for year 22.
We have a motion by Ms. Anderson, seconded by Mr. Brightstein. Brightstein, you got that, was your one, okay. No. To approve the Johnson County Interlocal Cooperation Agreement for Dispatch Services for fiscal year budget year 22-23. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
You abstain.
Okay. Item number 7, discuss, consider possible action on the resolution for a bank depository policy. Yes, sir.
Why can't we lump 7, 8, and 9 together?
Because I think because they're in the resolutions.
Yeah.
Can we?
You getting sleepy? You getting sleepy? You getting sleepy?
Matter of fact, 1:30 in the morning.
But they're short answers, so.
Yeah. Okay, Mike.
So this is, we're required to have a depository resolution to go out for bid or RFQs for. And since there's only one bank here, this gives us the ability that outside banks we could look at also.
Any more questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Walter, approved by Mr. Brightstein, second by Mr. Brightstein, to adopt the bank depository policy. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Item number 8, discuss consider possible action adopting an investment policy. So things to be done.
It's the same thing. It's just a requirement, something that we needed to get done. We set up investment guidelines years ago, but we never put a policy in place that was approved and put in a resolution by the council. This just cleans that up.
Any questions? Okay.
Make a motion to approve.
Mr. Kidd making a motion to approve.
I'll say.
Mr. Walter, second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous. All right, discuss, consider possible action on the fund balance policy.
Once again, is something that we've never really put in place, but to go along with some of the national guidelines of the county principles and so forth, this will put us, provide a policy that will require us to maintain a minimum of 25% to maintain a reserve balance that equals 25% of the current year budget. We are well above that now. 25% is kind of the standard. And so that's what we said, that we can always raise it, but this gives us a start.
I thought I remembered us doing this with your predecessor. We talked about the fund balance. I thought we had a policy already.
Never got adopted.
Never got adopted.
Never got adopted. It did start back there. We located it, updated it, but it's basically that policy that was presented then. It was just never finalized.
Any questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve this.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Kidd, seconded by Mr. Breitenstein. For adopting the fund balance policy. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay, item number 10, discuss, consider a possible action on development agreements between the city of Joshua and property owners of parcel located on County Road 705, County Road 805, Wilson Street, Ranch Road, and Redbird Lane. Authorize the city manager to execute all necessary documents.
This is phase two, of cleaning up the borders and getting some of those little pocket areas back out into ETJ. We finished up the section back north and west, and this is starting with east side stuff.
Any questions?
It's got a long time ago. Yeah, long ago.
Okay, motion. Right, Steve Lou. Walter.
Who did?
Walter.
Walter, okay, thank you.
So, we have a motion to, enter into development agreements between the city and its property owners. And authorize the city manager to execute all necessary documents. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
These properties. How many of these are under a development agreement currently?
No, they didn't sign initially.
Right.
And that's why we're going back, because there's one here, then there's two or three houses, and there's another, we're cleaning up all those areas.
Trying to get them to sign it now.
Right.
They've already agreed to sign.
But yes, they have. We've already reached it. So far, we've had 100% of the people we've contacted have said yes.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to clarify that.
Comments? Okay. All in favor? It's unanimous. Okay, staff reports. Any questions on any of the staff reports? If none. Do I have any questions for future agenda items? Anything you'd like to hear?
I don't know if it's, well, I guess it would be a future, because, where are we at on the last month, we were talking about the tree ordinance, we're gonna bring something back on that policy.
It's still in progress.
Do we have
So
an idea?
I think next month we'll be there.
And then did we ever hear anything more from Waste Management on pricing and getting that?
No, he was gonna go back, he being able was gonna go back and speak with, I guess, I don't know if they have a board or what the official term would be to see, what type of, if he would allow pricing, but no.
Again, we'll put down next month's agenda. Also, we're supposed to get a monthly report on the progress for the broadband installation in the city. That.
Yeah, status update.
Status update.
I
On
think
broadband.
everything,
They have all the business,
So-
they're just waiting on something. That we provided, they've given to us. Is that what he's talking about?
Yeah.
They've provided us with the numbers, which I believe you've seen, but,
Just put it on next month's agenda.
okay,
I
put it
think
on
what
the
we're
agenda.
gonna need to do is fix it up for not a budget member, figure a funding mechanism for it is.
Okay.
All we need to do.
At this time, we're going to adjourn into executive session. Council reserves the right for the executive session to meet with our attorney pursuant to government code, chapter 551, including 551.07, private consultation with the attorney for the city. And 551.07, discuss the purchase of change lease of real property. 551.07, discussing personnel to hear this personnel and 551.07, discussing economic development. These decisions, along such matter will be taken for conducting the open session following the conclusion of the session, the session. So at 8:29, we are.
Recess.
Yes.
Okay, at 9:12, we'll call this meeting back to order. There's no business coming out of the executive session. We are adjourned. Yay.